Oh, hello again, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for visiting once again, although it has been some time since you've seen a modelling video from me, but you are most welcome nevertheless, and thank you for coming along. Um, Everyone here will know that this is the BAC TSR2, which was built by the BAC consortium, which contained within it English Electric and various other aircraft manufacturers of the day, and was ill-fated in the sense that there was only one built, and that was XR219 that you see depicted here. It was the only one to fly, and got only around 25 or 26 flights into the test program. So I suppose for some points this would be the other end of the spectrum to the aircraft that I'm going to talk about today, about which you will know perhaps rather a lot more than me. But the reason for looking at TSR2 was that really, in terms of English Electric, TSR2 was, I suppose, the culmination of their efforts at jet aircraft building. In some sense, because you had the TSR2 here, you had the English Electric, or formerly or BAC Lightning, and of course the aircraft that we're going to study today. And I'll just put this away a minute, and I have to be careful with the pitot head because it's made of brass and will bend really quite easily. The aircraft we're going to talk about today is the English Electric Canberra. Now, this is a rather splendidly large box. It's approximately the same size as the box that the 148th Lightning came in that I reviewed back along, because it's quite large, of course. You can see all my lights here getting in the bloody way, but there we are. It's a 148th version. As you can see, it's a B Mark 6 or a B Mark 2. But what I want to do is have a look inside the box today and show you what that looks like. I acquired this from a friendly local internet to me quite recently, and this will be the culmination of a project that I've undertaken now to build all three BAC stroke English Electric aircraft that were test flown by Roland Beaumont. The Canberra being the first one, the Lightning being the second, and of course the TSR2 being the third one. So of course you'll know that Roland Beaumont wasn't the only test pilot in each case, but in the TSR2's case, I think it was a gentleman called Moneypenny or Halfpenny, something like that. I think it was the other test pilot. But this aircraft was substantially more successful than the TSR2, being as it was sold all around the world to many different air forces, and on this particular example there is I think an Australian Air Force variant that you can model, or a Royal Air Force variant. But this aircraft in various guises saw service in the Royal Air Force from the prototype VN599 in 1949 all the way to 1986, so that's a distance of some 37 years, probably making it the longest serving RAF jet aircraft ever, I would suspect. And its original designation was as a medium bomber. Now, I won't go into a lot of detail about the box, because you know all too well what the box is, how the boxes work, and how they operate, in the sense that, you know, of course, I'll just bash the light there. On one side you've got actual pictures of the model, and some artwork as well. And on the other side, if you turn them over like that, they're the right way up. You've got another picture with the some words about the there you go, I'll show you that for a minute, and then you can pause if you want to read that, but there you are. So it's very cleverly put together, very well thought out, I think, and I think that makes it makes it particularly interesting. And as you can see, the bag is completely sealed. I got this from some eBay fellow, and he's clearly looked after it very well. So I've got a good deal here, I think. I have paid real actual money for this, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. So we'll look at some of the books of words and so on, and the model itself. I mean, you can already see that the fuselage is really pretty large. It's not quite as long as a TSR2, but certainly long enough, and that bomb bay there is fairly significant. But we'll excuse me, we'll come to that in a minute, because we have some things to look at first. Instructions, and as is usual with these things, my intention is to go through the instructions and then look at the salient points as we go, and maybe if I remember some interesting factoids, shall we call them factoids? Why not? Why not? Maybe I'll share them with you as we go. So here we are. So we'll just withdraw these sprues from the bag, and I'll just drop that down there. But there are quite a lot of sprues, and as you can see, the very cleverly, excuse me, the transparent parts are encased in plastic, so they won't be damaged. That's good. So we've got 1, 2, 3. What should we do with that? We'll put that up there like that for a minute and be careful with it. 4. You can see how big those wings are. That's really quite substantial. You wouldn't want to make this in 132, it would be quite large. 5, 6. There are 7 sprues. There's quite a lot of parts here, and quite a lot of opportunities. I don't know how old this kit is, and I'm sure that some of you experts out there will be able to tell me. I think it's copyrighted 2008. It's not in the white plastic that the TSR2 was in, so it's not that old. But nevertheless, it's been around for a little while, and I mean, I quite like the feel of the plastic. It feels quite good. Not that that tells me anything meaningful, it must be said. And the kit is clearly new enough that you have the shiny paper documentation. So for the stencil data for both the option A, which is the B Mark 6, and the B Mark 20 here, you've got the stencil data information there. So there's quite a lot to look at there. And then we've got the 213 Squadron Bruggen 1969 variant WT313. And on the other side we have the number 1 Operational Conversion Unit, Royal Australian Air Force, RAAF Amberley, Queensland, in a slightly different colour, which is, oh well, it's in aluminium, satin US gold grey, and gloss white on the top. That'd be quite a nice scheme, that, actually, I will say. I'm not going to do that one. Maybe another time, but not this time. I'm going to stick to RAF aircraft, because what we can do is we can model this as the TSR2 chase plane in exactly the same way as we might want to do with the Lightning. So there we go. So let's just quickly take the instructions out, and also we'll have a look at the decals. These look pretty good quality. They're quite thin by the feel of them, I would say. So I don't know who makes these. It should say somewhere, shouldn't it? But I'm not spotting where it says that. You can see the transfer markings, you know, the carrier film on these. It's quite visible, particularly on this up here. I don't know if we can show you that there. It does show. I will probably make, using my little cry-cut device, the roundels here. So these will be located onto the wing sections here. What I like about painted on markings is that they melt into the panel lines rather than resting over the top of it. I think the effect is most striking, as I think I said to the most excellent Nigel earlier on when he was looking at some excellent one-man army masking sets. So there we are. Anyway, so to the instructions, let's go and have a little look and see what we can see. Good writings in here about the history, which really Canberra starts with Teddy Petter being appointed as chief designer at English Electric, but the original design specifications were worked out at about that point. So if you measured an aircraft's life really from its first design, the Canberra was almost around for, you know, a good deal more years than many aircraft ever find their way into service. But nevertheless, it's a long-lived aircraft. We'll leave it at that. So yeah, usual instructions. You know, don't run with scissors, don't drink your own bath water, that sort of thing. I will do my usual thing here with not deploying a pilot sitting in this aircraft, and I may try and do it with the entry doors open. I'll find out where they are and go from there. But so we can dismiss this fellow and put him into the consignment of things that don't get made. Nice little feature here. We can see that these have seat belts on already, so we can detail this in quite nicely. I'll have a little close look at that. I think might be a good idea. Just have a quick glance at that. These are C-sprue parts, so that's just. But I'll move my little vehicle up there out of the way, because these wings are more substantial than I had anticipated. And carefully put them there. See, this particular part is beginning to come away, so we're going to have to be quite careful with that. Don't quite know what we can do about that. Sometimes on the inside of these canopy these fuselage parts, there's a date marking. Doesn't appear to be one in this case. And these, by the way, don't feel oily at all. They're quite sticky to the touch in some sense. But so let's find the C-sprue parts, and that isn't them, I think. Let's find the letter first. I need to find the. There must be one somewhere. Normally it's in the middle, sort of here somewhere, isn't it? Let's go to the next one here. Oh, there we go. That's sprue B. We know that, so it's got a little tag at the side. That doesn't appear to have a tag at the side, which is quite peculiar, but never mind. There we are. Here's the seats here, so I have to be careful with them. I don't know what they are. They might be jet pipes or something like that. But these seats here, let's just zero in on these seats. Just have a quick look at them. We can see the belts, which stand a little bit proud. I might make some belts for these actually, or see if I can get a belt set for these in 148. There ought to be something hanging around that one can use, because I'm not sure that looks pretty good, all that good. But having said that, with the situation of the cockpit and canopy, you may not be able to see too much in there, so we might be able to just get away with painting these, and if I wanted to do a nice quick build, which I think I probably will, that would probably be the right way forward. So there we are. So we can assemble those parts up in part 2, and there's 3 of those to do, and then we have the cockpit here. So for the pilot's cockpit, it's an interesting design. As I recall, I think the pilot sits to one side rather than centrally in the cockpit. So the cockpit forms a little bubble, and the pilot sits, I think, towards the starboard side. Sorry, the port side. I beg its pardon. So the left side, and he's quite low into that cockpit bubble. I believe that some of the shorter pilots of these aircraft remarked that it was quite difficult to see out of the aircraft looking ahead if you were shorter than a certain height, and you had to put the seat up to its highest elevation, and it still was difficult, which made ground movement quite difficult, of course, as well. But there we are. It's got a bomber's control yoke here with the 2 handles there, which the pilot grasps, and I think we have the weapons operator in behind here, I think, and a navigator, I think, is down at the front, as I recall. I may be wrong on that. No, it looks like I am wrong. I think it's 2 side by side at the back, looking here at section 5, so I should look ahead a bit, shouldn't I? It is quite important that 5P here, which is this side part of the pilot's control panels, is actually set up at a proper angle there, but there is a piece of plastic there that will allow you to do that. Let's see if we can find these components. Maybe we can. Ah, and here they are. So 5p, that's 3, 5, here we are. So 5p, if we just zero in on that, we can see that 5p has a little spigot there that you can just push that onto. The control panels are somewhat detailed, but they're in shall we say bas relief rather than with any dials or anything like that, so one would have to make some effort to detail them. Let's have a quick look at the decals for a minute. There doesn't look like there are any decals to add in, and I don't think there are. So again, it may be that you can't see very much of this, so you may get away with just adding in some black paint and so on, and detailing it that way. It's difficult to know at this stage, but the reports are from what I see from people who actually flew the aircraft is not a lot could be seen in from outside, but we'll see how we go with that, shall we? Let's put those decals over there and that sprue over there. So let's move along a little bit. We then move into what looks like so this is the roof of the bomb bay here. Inserting those panels on, and that's part 1B, and let's find 1B. It gives us a bit of an idea of the scale here. Here we go. Here's the B sprue here, and that's part 1B there. So we can see, let's zero out again, we can see how big that component is, in fact. So it was a fairly substantial bomb bay there. And we're very quickly, with this aircraft and this project, we'll be very quickly into the assembly of this whole aircraft. So we're going to have, I'm afraid, no way of dealing with it otherwise. We're going to have some long seams to deal with here. So we're going to have to make certain that the assembly of those two halves is as good as it can possibly be. We have to remember to add some weight in here as well. That's also quite important. And make certain we get everything seated properly. Paint is 33. I don't know, where's the paint numbers here? Are they on the back or somewhere? Let's have a look, see what they say on this. 33 is saying matte black, actually, because the inside of the cockpit here is matte black. So that's quite interesting. What does it suggest the paint? The paint work should be here on the inside of the on the control panels. 11 and 33, so matte black, and 11, which is silver. 33, yes, it's all pretty much matte black. It's going to be pretty featureless inside, to be honest with you, everybody. I think, would we want to invest anything in the cockpit here, in anything? I doubt it, quite honestly. I'll have a look and see what's about, and if it's not horrifically expensive, then we might take a look at that. But not a lot of the working bits are going to be seen here. I'll do the bomb doors shut, quite frankly. I'm not going to bother having them open. So we quickly move on to our wing assembly, and we've already had a little look and see how big those wings are. They're very substantial, and as you can see, there's quite some amount of work to do there. Let's just switch them over. Yes, the instructions show us that the 13A component, which is the wheel well there, would sit up into there, onto those pins here and here. There are some ejector pin marks here, but I don't think we'll see too much of that. Let's just have a quick glance into the wheel wells. They're fairly barren, fairly featureless. We could probably, I've introduced in the last 148, the TSR2, I introduced wiring into there and various other bits and pieces. I think I might very well do that with this, because these things will be visible, including the nose wheel as well. So I shall have to do a little bit of research to look at what the nose wheels look like, because I think Airfix kits of this vintage were, I think, not famous for being altogether too detailed, shall we say. But what I can say about this is this plastic on this wing section feels really particularly thick, and this feels quite substantial. This has been moulded very nicely, I have to say. The detailing is soft but not deep. I mean, you can see these panel lines here. They won't be over deep. I may even, which is what I did with the TSR2, is just overscore those gently in there. Now the reason I do that is because when you put a panel liner in, it does accent it a little bit more, and what we're trying to do is to create an optical effect so that it looks like the large expanse of wing has some feature to it, and I think that's quite important. So we'll look at that. I'll show you doing that. It's fairly dull, but I will show that for you. But this is nicely made. This is, I think, very good. I'm quite impressed with this, to be honest with you. What I would expect of a good Airfix kit. I'm sure it'll probably go together quite nicely as well. We have ailerons going together, and then we're into the engines. Again, we'll not be seeing much of the engines. The fans, these are Rolls-Royce Avon engines, so they were fairly elderly, venerable engines there. Let's see if we can find the those parts. They're P components. Yes, I know which sprue that one was. That was the one with the driver's seats in them and all that sort of thing. And I've put them down in a safe place that's now so safe that we can't find it. Let me just see if I can put my hands on that. Ah, there it is. It's hidden in that safe place down there. So again, we can see the just the beginning of the fans there. As you can see, can you see that? Let's have a look at that. Yes, you can just about see them. I don't think you're going to see very much of this. 10B and 7B, so let's find that B sprue. That'll be them there. I think you're not going to be able to see too much out of their 10 and 7B. There you go. No, I don't think. Again, I don't think there's much advantage to actually getting a super detailing kit for these engine components. They can be optically dealt with panel liner and stain and so on and so forth, and I think we could do a good job with that, and that shouldn't be a problem. So there's the remains of the engines there. So those two long sections there with the rear parts of the tailpipes there. Then we're looking at the wing fuel tanks, I believe, is what they are. And then we're starting to put, at stage 18, starting to put all of this stuff together. We've then got horizontal stabilizers, port and starboard here, and then the elevators, rudder there, and assembling all those components together. And we have some options here on wheels. There's A option wheels and B option wheels. They're clearly different. You can see the design is actually slightly different in there from the 24C and 23C. We'll be able to look at those. Let's fetch them out, shall we? Let's just have a quick look at that. So here's your C sprue. There's those long sections we talked about, which are the rear tailpipes. So here we go. We can look at these now, so we can see 4-spoke wheels there, in a section much the same for both, and then we've got, what would they be, 12-spoke wheels, I suspect, some sort of alloy wheel, that kind of thing. Imagine that, a Canberra with alloy wheels. Maybe it's got jumped up suspension as well, who knows. So there we go. So yeah, some options there, depending upon which option. I think I'll probably be looking at the A option, which would be 26C. So that's the inner wheel, and The A option is 27C, so I'm looking at the 4-spoke wheels for the RAF version. The tyres have been flat spotted, which is good. I just noticed that there. So there we go, and there is a little bit of lining detail on the tyres, but they meet in the middle, of course, so you know we've got some work to do there. So the assembly of those units there, and then we're into the bottom part of the zero out just a little bit there for you. We're into the bottom part of the assembly here, and we have the option to make the bomb doors open or closed. I'll do them closed. I'm not a great fan of having bomb doors open, to be honest with you, but there we are. And then we have options for bombs and rocket launchers. So these were called Matra rocket launchers. They were a staple of RAF aircraft for many years, from the 60s right the way through to the 80s for ground attack aircraft. Harriers used them quite a lot. There are options there. I will do an unarmed variant, and we'll go from there. The A option again has another additional part in here with the bomb door closed. By the look of things, you have that option too, and you're pretty much there. With the exception of putting the flaps on, you can have flaps up or flaps down. Now, I think this calls for a little bit of research, to be honest with you. I don't know what the default position for Canberra flaps was when they were essentially at rest, whether the pilots left the flaps up or left them down. It depends upon the orientation of the hydraulics and how that worked. So, for example, I think when you release on a Mustang, when you release the hydraulic pressure, which you do at the completion of a flight, or you're intended to do, I think the undercarriage doors tended to come shut. So then powering the aircraft up would then open up those doors, so that it would do that more or less automatically, I think, but you had to make certain that it was done. Otherwise you would have problems putting the undercarriage up, of course. Seems obvious, but there we are. So yeah, the placing the flaps on would be more or less one of the final options. And then lastly, Q parts, which are the transparent components, and making certain that the blister is correctly sighted, and it looks to be sighted. If we look from the back to the front, it's sighted on the starboard side. We'll just zero in on that so that you can see that. This blister is sighted slightly on the starboard side, which I would assume would mean that the bomb aimer, or whoever it was sitting in the starboard seat at the back here, would then come down to this area here, so he could see out the front and he could aim the bombs and so on, and that blister was there for that purpose. So that would be my guess, right or not. By all means let me know. If you do the whole thing armed, of course you'll need to fit decals or do painting beforehand. Now, in terms of 1/48 scale, I can speak for, well, not for Nigel, but I'm sure you understand what I mean, having looked at his one-man army generic paint masks. You can now get the correct lettering in the correct stencil form to probably do these numbers quite happily in painted form, which would look very nice, I would have to say. I'll probably make my own roundels, but you can get roundels, you can get the lettering, and it depends on what height you want it. I suspect that would be fairly straightforward to do, and having worked with the one-man army bits and pieces, I think that you would get on very well. They're a lot simpler than people let on that they are. I know Nigel has done some good, solid, well put together instructional videos on using the one-man army stuff, and I, as you know, make my own stencils for roundels and such like, and once you've done them a couple of times, they're dead easy, really simple to do. And then we're off to, after doing all that, we're off to the paint shop. So I think I'm going to be using what is it, it'd be 164 there, 163 and 164, dark sea grey and dark green on that Legend with light aircraft grey underneath. I think that works quite nicely, looks quite good, so I shall do that mark, and probably that WT313 as well. So there we are. So there we are, after half an hour we've now come to the end of the Canberra kit review. Another Airfix kit there that has found its way into my collection for building at some stage. I should say about my own, what do they call it, stash, there we are, that I buy kits that I do fully intend to build. Sometimes I know people buy kits to collect them, but I do intend to take this stuff off the sprues and turn it into a serviceable looking aircraft, because frankly that's what I like to do. I will make some videos of this because it's a project that I want to do, and I do hope that you'll come along and see. I will write a small piece about this Canberra, or about the Canberra, on my Substack at some stage, and I hope that you will enjoy reading that. Please feel free to visit my Substack. There's all sorts of things about aircraft and various other bits and pieces that you might be interested in. I wrote a piece about I think the Miles M52, for example, which was an experimental jet aircraft from the Second World War that the Miles Aircraft Company didn't quite build, unfortunately, but was very innovative in any one of a number of ways. But please do take a look at that, he said, shamelessly plugging my own Substack there, but there we are. I'll leave a link to that in the bits and pieces underneath, and also a link to the playlist for the TSR2. I did write a bit of a piece about TSR2 as well. But anyway, look, thank you very much for coming along to one of my, shall we say, slightly less frequent videos these days. That's owing to the fact that it's the summer and I play cricket in the summer. But I'm very much obliged to you for your continued support. Thank you very much for coming along to visit my my videos and my ramblings and ruminations online. It's my pleasure to present them to you, and my delight that you come along and watch. Take care until the next time. See you later. Bye for now.